Right. Hi, everyone. So this is Randy from the Money Chronicles podcast. So I'm here with Benedict Nguyen, going by she, her pronouns. Benedict is a freelance dancer, writer, and creative producer. She's danced in recent projects by Sally Silvers, Chris Settle, Monsta Black, and among other choreographers, who has also appeared in the short film Don't Fuck with Ba, and began developing the dance theater work Defense with Sugar Van Deal in 2025. As a producer, she supported projects that have been presented at the New York Botanical Garden, TBA 21, Issue Project Room, Center for Performance Research, among many others. Her writing on labor and culture has appeared in the Baffler, Bomb Magazine, Vanity Fair, Los Angeles Review of Books, AAWW's The Margin, a publisher weekly 2025 Writers to Watch. Benedict is the author of the freelance labor zine Nasty Notes. Her debut novel, Hot Girls with Balls, was an ABA Indie Next Pick, there it is, and US Today national bestseller. So congratulations on the success of Hot Girls with Balls. I'm excited to talk to you about the genesis in creating this novel. And so, looking back in 2025, what can you reflect about your growth as a writer while navigating through what was a very turbulent year for many?
Yeah, it's definitely been a strange year to be out there hawking a book. I've been really thankful to get to wear so many of the hats that I wear in this world. I've been rehearsing as a dancer and a choreographer's work, Sally Silvers, um, while preparing for the publication of this book. Um, while I was on book tour, I was producing a project by the artist Will Rawls called Sicker. And so wearing both of those hats at the same time as well. I've also been making my own work, and I've been really thankful to be surrounded by so many artists in times that are deeply, deeply bad.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, been thankful for my friends, loved ones, community, as we're looking out for each other through fascism.
Yeah, and thank you for shedding light into it. Actually, I'm curious, like, you are a dancer, and what dancing do you do? Like, what is your favorite genre? What has, how long have you been trained as a dancer?
Yeah, I've been working as a freelance dancer in New York City since 2015. Um, and yeah, I work in a lot of contemporary, experimental, postmodern projects. Those labels are all very broad and contentious, but
Mhm.
they'll suffice as a shorthand for today. Um, and yeah, it's been super rewarding getting to learn about different choreographers' visions and ethos through the body, the medium through which dance is made and shared.
Mhm. And for your recent novel, what has the experience been in connecting with readers and audiences since promoting Hot Girls with Balls? What feedback have they shared with you, and how have you responded to it?
Yeah, I'm been really lucky to get to meet readers across the US while on tour. I've zoomed into book clubs, libraries, and festivals. Uh, yeah, people have had such wide-ranging interpretations of the book. Like some people find the protagonists, Six and Green, like so compelling and like they fall in love with them, which is very cute. And then some people find them like unlikable, but they couldn't stop reading, which is also very real. And yeah, it felt super gratifying and to be able to create characters on the page that people were able to form strong opinions about.
What was the genesis in writing Hot Girls with Balls?
I, yeah, in my dance life have always, I've also written criticism about dance and performance. And um, so since 2018, have been contending with the question of how to write about performance and and transcribe it or translate it into language. Um, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, an hour long dance work with so many like moving images and meat space, can like elicit a bajillion words. Um, and so I've always been intrigued by the task of like capturing movement into language. And so when I rediscovered volleyball in 2021, and I just had a newfound appreciation for the physicality of the sport. And um, yeah, it was like, how do you even put to words the beauty of what they're doing?
Mhm. Yeah, I actually am curious when you mentioned about your own criticism of dance. What was the experience that you had that made you realize that there are things that need to be examined with this dance form with the genre?
Yeah, like many art forms, and th there's been like a decrease in critical engagement and I think we're seeing this in film and in literature and music. Um, and I think of criticism as like uh as a process of archiving, as a process of um engagement, of like keeping a work alive, and um also a process of interpretation and meaning making. Um, and yeah, like any art form, I, I've been honored. I find it's important to like treat the work that artists create with reverence
Mhm.
and critical curiosity. And yeah, it's been an honor to be able to write about different works across mediums.
Yeah, and I know that you had earlier brought this up, but I'm curious about your connection to volleyball. And were you a former athlete?
All dancers are athletes, and um, so I'm still an athlete.
Mhm.
Um, as for team sports, I never really, had or earlier on, I never really got the flow for ball sports. But was able, like at the stage in my life that I was in when I was rediscovering volleyball, was able to appreciate the choreography of a team and like the constant of the rehearsed plays that a team has in their toolkit, as well as the necessary improvisation that comes with the velocity of a ball flying through the air.
Hmm. And how much did you connect with the main character six when you were developing your characters? What is it about the characters that you felt resonated with you?
Yeah, I, in addition to the sports angle, I was also interested in um, the evolution of celebrity and online fame,
Mhm.
and especially since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, and how the mechanisms for building platforms and clout chasing have warped, like, have created like so many micro celebrities and influencers. Um, and so I wanted the book's protagonist, Six and Green, to kind of like like dance between like relatability and likability,
Mhm.
like, common metrics for like um how cool a celebrity is, while also at the same time necessarily being unrelatable to readers and myself, and that they're professional athletes. They're like famous, and so they live lives that don't resemble most people's, or mine at least.
I think it's very interesting because the last several years, as you brought up, is that with the with TikTok, Instagram, and different social media forums and how it has created like the influencer culture, and also um, what does it mean to portray real life or a branded life, I should say. I'm very curious about like what has your relationship with social media been like from your observations, and how do you think that affects the way you interact even now, when you are now promoting a novel, promoting your writing? Because I know this is something that I think about as a person who, does podcasting and sharing content. And I think the question is like where does the line get drawn, I think. And I think this is something that's still an ongoing conversation about what does it mean to like navigate through social media as someone that is now starting to um find an audience and where people seek you out for advice, relatability and whatnot.
Yeah, it's really slippery, like blurry line between like the words used like real and branded, like time spent that someone spends on their phone is real, and like the pixels on our screen like are representations of real people, but they're not real, but they're also like the like thoughts and the parasocial connections that people form with people that they witness or observe on social media are real. And um yeah, and I think it's like as a dancer and a performer, I think about that line a lot. I feel like the notion of authenticity is a really funny one to me, and that like I don't know, like everything is a little bit performance, and that's not necessarily an evil thing. Um, in terms of my social media, yeah, I've never been like a super huge power poster or whatever, um, but kind of like for the promotion of this book, created some reels that I had a vision for like a series of videos about like making fun of parodying sports influencers. And so while even if I like was creating these video files and editing them from like ironic distance, I was still going through the act of like asking my friends to help me film them, and like sitting in front of my phone and like going through the like real labor of like editing them and like stitching the clips together. Um, and and it's funny how like for some people I've already known in my life, as well as for strangers, that like those little 20-second clips for like an entry point or like a reminder that my book is was coming out. Um, and welcome to marketing in 2025.
Yeah, I think when I go on a rabbit hole with TikTok and especially with the algorithms culture that it has created, it's like it's like I do content and I do these reels too. Like sometimes I just like dance on a whim and like I think what I get very struck by is the production that people put on. And it's like it is a lot of work and it's something that I personally don't have an interest in going for it because I feel like I come from like the older millennial generation where like we are okay with being cringe, but now there's like this day and age where people are afraid to be cringe, and it feels like there's this level of performance, and I think that is
Something
yes.
nonchalance, right?
Yes, exactly. And I'm also like very curious, like when it comes to parodying sports, I'm very curious, like what have you noticed with sports influencers that kind of makes you roll your eyes at?
I mean, I could never roll my eyes at social media. Joking. Yeah, I mean, I love the way that um that like my vantage point, but like the certain trends and like content and how um like even if we take the same sport, but like the racial differences, the gender differences, and how people present like being an athlete and how they like reinforce certain stereotypes, I find um amusing. And I think like my book as well is like kind of playing into like expectations like of femininity and masculinity and like girliness and desirability and how that is like expected of athletes, but we expect or the market rewards desirability differently from different kinds of athletes. And um yeah, I mean, it's not enough to just go to practice now. You have to like film yourself waking up at 4 a.m. and like doing your skincare routine before you go sweat it off um, at the arena all day. So
The
what a world we
hustle
live in.
culture. Yeah,
Yes,
the hustle and grind culture. And I think that's the thing that I side eye the most too, because yes, and whenever I see the first few seconds of a person waking up, it's like, oh, here we go again. Another
but
hustle in a day in the life.
you sometimes you watch it past the first few seconds, right?
Yeah, and you're just like, okay, what am I gonna get myself into? And then obviously with TikTok algorithms, it's like, oh, there's another video that's related to this. And it's like, great,
Mm.
now I'm stuck in this trap and I have to find a way to get out of this. Um, but yeah, um
Do you,
I think
can I
oh
ask you
good.
a question?
Yes.
Do you feel like the like willingness, unwillingness to be cringe as a generational divide?
You know what? I think that's a really good question. It's something I'm still kind of marinating in. Because I know like when I look back in my 20s, like for the record, I'm 42 years old. And like in my 20s, like I there were there was this like I used to go clubbing and I used to like, dance wild to like, pop songs of the yesteryears. And the thing is that this was before like camera phones and recordings and the way social media was then to now is vastly different. And the thing is, I think we were allowed to make more mistakes. We were allowed to like, to really, I guess in some ways, be more free to be ourselves without the whole world examining us and critiquing us. And I think that the way it is now, even for, you know, I think all generations is that we still I think that there's a wariness. There is a sense of like, okay, we gotta keep editing. We gotta like, perfect this art, I guess. I think it's something that I'm still marinating in because I think about like what we were allowed to do back then that's not captured. Um, to where like if we make one little mistake or like if there's something that happened, it goes viral within a minute and that becomes a whole conversation and what it does to people that are the recipient of that feedback.
Yeah, the collective surveillance culture that people have um, that people maintain can't just make out with someone at a sports game anymore unless
Mhm.
you know. Then the internet finds out you're a CEO having a public affair.
Yeah, it's kind of like how like what we share like we're free from like we're not free from the consequences and like we live in a day and age of doxing and and also meme culture too like I there are people that are afraid to be a meme obviously for many reasons if we do something that's like yikes I shouldn't be doing this in public and yeah I think
Mhm.
that it goes hand in hand I think like social media has definitely change the way we present ourselves in public the minute that we get out of bed and how we present ourselves with what we like to do. Like
Mhm.
I'm very curious, like as an athlete, like were there other sports that you were into? Were you like watching figure skating? Because I think when I was growing up, I was a big sports fan, like when it comes to like the NBA to NFL, baseball, but I also had a thing for like figure skating and women's tennis and trying to think of another sport. Um, like when I would watch the Olympics, I would watch the gymnastics team and I was more into that part, but I remember my brothers who were very hetero male and they were like saying, well, this is such a sissy sport and you can't be watching that. And I think that I still was trying to grapple with both, but I'm curious about like your own observations with other sports and how that in a way kind of like um informed your perspectives of the different sports genres.
Yeah, it's, I feel like the artistic judged sports, figure skating, gymnastics, um, really like draw our attention to the subjectivity in all sports. Like even in basketball, like a more macho bro sport, like so much depends on ref calls or lack of ref calls. Um, and then like track and field, which is or swimming, which are like timed sports that are maybe the least subjective, and that the Omega clock, we collectively agree that that clock doesn't lie. Um, but I feel like with the judged sports, I think like they draw attention to the importance of presentation, like in gymnastics and figure skating on the women's side, especially, of course, it's important to make like the movement appear effortless. Whereas like in a soccer, you know, or a football, like someone sweating, huffing and puffing, struggling to like get the motion done is just kind of part of like the culture of the sport. Um, Whereas in figure skating, you have to um, do a triple axel and a pretty
Mhm.
dress and then smile at the end.
And also being able to choreograph to the music too intricately. And I think that's something
Hmm.
that like as a person who loves listening to music, it's like I used to watch I used to be such an MTV guy and YouTube guy when it comes to music videos. Like I was a big fan of Madonna and Janet, and some of the and Britney. And I think about like the choreography and what it requires, but I also think about like what happens when athletes, especially when they get to a certain age, like where they are past their prime, like I have seen like with former athletes that it becomes really hard. Like once you are retired from the sport at the age in your mid 30s to 40s, um, the transition it seems like it's very hard, especially for a person who's been training for years and days on end, and then to not only be able to do that, it's like what do you do with that time? Um, Is that something that you think about as a dancer? Because I always think about that, like when a person gets older, like what do you do when your body's no longer able to physically carry that, and and how that actually affects maybe your relationship with the sport.
Yeah. Uh, to be an athlete competing at the highest level, I feel like you need some degree of tunnel vision and like single-minded focus on the thing day in, day out. That makes it hard to plan for other avenues in life. As far as my dance career has gone, I've always been doing other work. I, I had the opportunity to take a dance job that would have been full time once upon a time. And when I was presented that opportunity, I realized, oh, I actually don't want to like spend 40 hours a week in the studio rehearsing. I feel like that would, at the time, I feel like I would have found that quite difficult. And so I've, you know, built a life and a career in doing other things. And so even like with my book coming out, like I never expected or I don't aspire to be like full-time writer, like just sitting in front of my draft all day. And so it was super grounding while I was like on book tour, like talking about myself and my work to have like that counterpoint um, with work that I was doing for other artists and supporting the realization of their visions, um, and having both going at once been has felt has been more sustainable to me in every way.
Hmm. What was the experience like finding a publisher, a literary agent that understands and supports stories from Asian, specifically in Vietnamese queer and trans writers? I'm curious about your relationship with Catapult and what was that? How did that partnership begin?
Yeah. Um, I first had to find an agent and had to submit an excerpt from the manuscript, and then if an agent requested the full manuscript, then the full novel. And over that process, I realized I called my book "Hot Girls with Balls." This is going to trigger a lot of spam filters. Oops.
Very memorable
Somehow,
too. Very memorable.
yeah. The many meanings. Thank you. And yeah, was able to find an agent um, whom I worked with to develop the manuscript, and then we submitted the book to publishers. And then I met my now editor, Alicia Kroll, at Catapult. And yeah, from our first Zoom chat, I could tell that they really understood what I was trying to communicate with this novel. And throughout our editorial process, we had so many rich, fulfilling, engaging, exciting conversations about how to further develop the characters and how to sharpen the pacing. And I felt super supported by Catapult throughout the process. I feel really lucky.
Yeah. And what authors or books that you read that helped shape your own vision and creativity as a writer?
Yeah, I I feel like there have been so many, or while I was drafting and revising, even books that seemed to not have much to do with my novel, like I was able to put in conversation and see like, you know, any touch points. After a couple drafts in, I read Lightning Rods by Helen DeWitt, which is a satire about a really kind of deranged premise, and then the narrative just takes that premise to its inevitable conclusion. And like in retrospect, I was kind of like revising Hot Girls with Balls to like just follow this provocative premise of trans women willfully choosing to play for a men's sports league, and follow that choice through to its narrative endpoint, or a narrative endpoint at least for the characters within the time frame of this novel.
Were there writers and creatives that you connected with the Vietnamese or Asian communities, or with queer and trans communities that provided support and encouragement for your work?
Yeah, I've been lucky to meet um, so many writers in the world over the years. I think it was in 2019. I interviewed Monique Jung for the first time, and for AWW's The Margins, and she was we were while we were like talking about her book, The Sweetest Fruits. She was also super kind and has always been super kind and encouraging since. When I attended Tin House a few years back, I worked with Patrick Cottrell. I also got to meet Casey Platt, and both of them have also been super encouraging over the years as well. Through Perry Plus, the writer Andrea Lawler was my mentor. Andrea wrote Politics, the Form of Mortal Girl, and yeah, I'm has been they've been a super helpful person in my literary life.
What were some of the most helpful advices that they have shared with you that resonates with you in your navigation in this work?
Um, Honestly, just the encouragement to keep going and to keep persisting. I feel like there's no publication process without obstacles and, fear and hesitation and doubt. And just having different folks and even just like fellow writer friends um, who are more my peers and having them encouraging me to trust trust the work, trust myself, trust the process, and has been super grounding.
Um, like these days, we think of the violent rhetoric that Republicans have been taking up on trans athletes in sports. I know that this is something that you might have already addressed, but what were you hoping to share through your book in relation to the current climate regarding trans athletes?
Yeah, the the violent attacks on trans life and trans humanity have been the backlash to the trans tipping point of a decade ago has I've been feeling it for many years now. Um, and I think satire can be a medium of social critique that addresses the systemic transphobia that permeates daily life and culture. Um, but it's also a medium that allows for fun, levity. It achieves that critique through humor and through yeah. And I just wanted to write something that that was that contends with these questions, but is also like fun and engrossing, gossipy.
And do you have a favorite athlete or a dancer that you admired growing up, and who have you admired since?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in community with so many dancers and choreographers in my life now, and watching them and working with them, collaborating with them has been, yeah, the most rewarding. It's been a really rewarding part of my life.
As as far as like your plans for 2026, what are your plans for that year? And in terms of like your promotion of your novel, but also with your future literary works, what do you hope to like tackle on?
Uh, Honestly, I mean, live, laugh, love. I don't know. Uh, it's a scary world. I'm always writing. I'm make art because I have to. And
Mhm.
as far as like plans, I'm taking it day by day.
Yeah, and I'm very happy to see the success of your book, and also especially as a person who's Vietnamese and queer, and also seeing the um the emergence of more different writers and different voices. I think this is something that I think is so badly needed, and it's been long overdue. What advice would you give um to writers of any age that are trying to get their voices out there?
Um, yeah, a lot of my early career was just experimenting and just trying things out, putting things um, making little drafts of things and sharing them with friends. And I think the intimacy of and and of making projects for and with my friends has built a lot of courage and strength to think about doing that on a larger scale. Um, so yeah, I love I love to just try something and see, and my own reaction to it will tell me a
Mhm.
lot.
Is there like a story in mind that you would like to write or topics that really um that grab your attention that's like, yeah, this is something I really want to spend more time on?
Yeah, I'm gonna, in the, authenticity, cringe, whatever, like performance. This is firmly in the drawer of, things that I keep to myself till it's time.
Yeah, I guess it means like I guess it means going to TikTok rabbit holes. Like, okay, like let's let's take some notes here. It's like, okay, um, I yeah, because I think this is the world that unfortunately, ever since I got back into podcasting, I've been sucked into that world for better or for worse.
Mm,
And I'm like thinking, okay, this is it's like I'm trying to find a way to to not get stuck into a world that may not always feel authentic, but also kind of
mm,
like blur the lines. And I think that's something I mean, for me, I like to be entertained. You know, I love laughing. I love, I love seeing, you know, I'm guilty of like looking to see what the people are saying in the comments. I think sometimes it's very hilarious and sometimes it's like, yeah, like yikes, it's ick. Um, but yeah, I think this is going to be a very interesting time. I mean, it's wild that we are like, oh, halfway past this decade. If we can believe
oh,
that. Yeah.
who said
And
that?
yeah, I know. It's like I should be like Mariah Carey, where she's like, I don't trust the time, I don't trust the existence of time. So I'm
Mm,
maybe that's something I need to think about. But yeah, like, but yeah, I really hope that as we wrap up, I really hope that people get a chance to. I don't think you could see this. The Hot Girls with Balls. I think you can feel free to share. Yes, Hot Girls with Balls, and you can find it anywhere. But I also hope that you support your local indie bookstores. I have a huge need. I think this is a huge need that we need to lift that up because I feel like that they are the reasons why there's so many different authors that are able to get their books out there unlike an Amazon or Barnes and Noble. But yeah, I really hope that all the best to you as you are sharing this. And I was wondering if there's anything lasting things that you would like to say to like to the communities that you've been connecting with, and what have you learned from you know, the Vietnamese, whether it's in the Vietnamese or Asian communities or with the LGBTQIA communities or in the intersecting of both or many others. I'm curious to know what have you learned from being in those spaces and how has that kind of like, you know, make you think further about your work as a writer and dancer?
yeah, I having a book published has definitely been like a new scale at which I'm interacting with circles of people I wasn't necessarily in touch with before. Um, new stuff, yeah, having readers who know about my book has been super gratifying and humbling. Um, it's been really encouraging to, yeah, meet, see queer communities, see trans communities, see um, Asian communities and other affinity, like just community not defined by like shared affinity or shared identity, but just seeing people be together, look out for each other, take care of each other, support each other. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
and
got this.
thank you. Thank you so much. And it's so lovely to have you on. Thank you so much for being on, Benedict. And I hope that, again, people pick up a copy or go to your local library to ask for the copy of Hot Girls with Balls, which is now available. And yeah, all the best wishes to 2026 and to your creative endeavors.
Thank you, Randy. Same. Yeah.